All right, but with that said, let's get to our first topic then for this week. And that, of course, is the summer sale, or sales in general. As we all know, the Steam Summer Sale is going on for at least another, I think, 3 or 4 more days. I think it's till the 4th, right? That would have been good to actually look up beforehand. Okay, July 5th, so they're giving us one extra day. So it is the annual event of lots and lots of money being thrown around. And it's always a very crazy time for developers and consumers alike. This year I've been kind of very reserved. I think I've just played a lot of games thanks to press keys and just owning, my backlog. So it hasn't been too bad. I'm buying a lot of like $2 to $5 games here and there. Besides Undertale and What's the Loathing, have you picked up anything else yet, Rob?
I did Undertale, West of Loathing, and Emily is Away 2.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even played Emily is Away 1.
I haven't even heard of that one either.
That's a joke. It's not TWO, it's TOO. She is also away, is what I'm told. You said one thing I picked up on. You said annual, and it is now. Is it quadra-annual or like 4 times a year at least now? There's winter, summer, and then a spring and a fall.
Yeah.
So now, we are inundated with sales.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with each one of these sales comes a very tricky time for developers in terms of what you should be doing. And not only that, but whether you put your game on sale or not, because that also has major connotations. And this is, I think, a very hard topic for a lot of consumers, because we just see things, or most consumers just see a big page full of sales and 50% off and 85% off and all that. But for the developers, it can be very stressful time. So I guess for you, Rob, with what you did with Indie Voyage and just advising independent developers, like what do sales mean for you, or what do these big events mean?
It is, as you say, it's very tricky because there's a lot of different perspectives to take. The first perspective is one we ran into last year, multiple times, is when do you release your game? Because you can't release right before a sale, you can't release right after a sale. And then you got to figure out, well, how much are you going to release? Because every weekend there's a sale of someone or even a whole developer or publisher. So that thought of releasing, and we actually wound up releasing a game a little bit before for a variety of reasons that I will not delve into. And that was bad. Don't do it after either. So the launch is a huge question. Try and avoid sales as much as you can because it's just foolish. People have already, said I'm going to save all this money to spend on sales. Then going on sale, this is another pain in the butt because if you're not on sale, if you're not taking part in the Steam sale, you might as well just not depend on any income for that entire duration and even some after, simply because no one's looking at your game. Everyone's looking at and spending money on all the other games that are actually on sale. And then how much do you go on sale for? Let me just quickly go back to that first bit. If you just launched and you have a sale coming up, I don't know. If you want sales, you might as well take part in it, even for 10% off or 20%, because otherwise you have zero visibility. So let's say you've been out for a little bit and you want to take part in the sale. How much what kind of a discount are you going to put out? Well, I guess there's just so many questions that come up, and they're all very stressful, as you say, because you have this game that you just put out, you want it to make money, and you think it's going to make money. Your game is good enough to make money. That's why you did it. But now you're almost coerced into selling it for less money than you think it's worth. And then that question brings up, well, all these other games that are very similar to yours, well, they're on sale and they're cheaper than yours. So it's almost a no-win situation. My opinion these days is it's less about how much you sell your game for and more about how many copies you sell your game for. So remember, if you're selling 0 copies at $10, and you can sell 5 copies at $1, well, that's $5 more than you would have had otherwise. So a lot of times, especially with all the competition out there, be generous. It's okay to have like a flash sale. the concept of devaluing your game, well, yes, it's real, but at the same time, like you really got to take your own personal circumstances into account. And every person, every game, every genre is different. It's not a fun decision to make. It's not a fun thing to go through because even afterwards, there's always the doubt: did I have enough of a sale? Did I have too much of a sale? And yeah, you get into these groups because Steam now groups you. Like, do I want 50% off? Do I want 90% off? Like, because then when people do a search, you will show up. But no one does a search for 10% off or 20% off. So,
yeah. And a lot of good points that you made, Rob, and I want to go to El Goro's comment in a second as well. But as you said, like during like that period of 2 to 3 weeks before and then 2 to 3 weeks after, it's kind of like a dead zone for a lot of developers because, as you said, why release your game right before a major sale, especially if your game is going to be price high? Because I think one thing you said there about visibility, because just as a game that's a 50 to 75% gets visibility, we also see kind of a negative visibility for the games that have 0% off. Because you'll see this on just about any game that doesn't have a sale, someone's going to post, why isn't your game on sale? It's the Steam Summer Sale. You should have a sale right now. And again, it's very hard as a developer, kicking things there, it's very hard as a developer to get into that mindset as to kind of like, do you follow everybody else or you try to stick it out on your own? Because there are some games that famously do not go on sale. Stuff like that Shadow Tactics game, I think only went on sale like once or twice. And even then, as you said, how far do you go? Because you can easily devalue your game by going 75, 85% off, but at what point are you just not getting sales because your game is priced too high because everybody else has already bought it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get zero visibility. If you're not on sale, it's zero. You go to the main page of Steam during one of their 4 annual sales, and yeah, you might as well not even have a game out because it's just taken over by bigger games, more popular games that are all priced way lower.
Or even just like random miscellaneous games that got like an 85 or 90% deep discount.
Yeah. And to that point, El Gordo, Nuclear Throne, and Dusk have decided not to go on sale. And that is a decision a lot of people make. Like, I can compare it to, gosh, this is just the basic devaluation of games, and it's branching away from sales just a little bit. But I remember waiting for Paper Mario to go on sale, because it's been out for 2 years. Of course, it's going to be a little discounted, but no, Nintendo did not discount that for many, many years. I had to buy it used, excuse me. But yeah, it's out of principle is one thing, but there's only so far you can go with principles, right? The sale is not for the developers; it's for the fans. And if you're not making a game for your fans, then what are you doing? Because that's how you make money. So you got to figure out how to best cater to the people who are going to buy your game. And if that means going on sale, then you should go on sale. But Dusk probably is doing all right. There's a lot of games that are probably doing all right. I don't know why a principal would come into it. So.
Yeah, I think with something like Nuclear Throne, again, I think it's already made as much money as it's going to reasonably get in terms of big sales. I think everyone has bought it already. Same goes for games like The Binding of Isaac, Team Fortress, or even like major titles like Call of Duty. And every time we have those big sales, I always like to check on the AAA games and see how far they go down. And I'm curious. Somebody tells me Call of Duty's probably sold $30, maybe $20.
Well, it depends which Call of Duty.
That's weird. Call of Duty is not showing up on Steam. Oh, there it is. I don't know why. For a second there, I didn't know what Call of Duty was. That was a little weird. Let's see. Black Ops 2. Okay, so the latest Call of Duty is down to $35, while Black Ops 3, that's 3 years old, is down to $35 as well. Yeah, so those are some really good sales there.
Yeah.
And going back to what El Gordo was saying earlier about the old sales being better, I think I would have to agree with that. For those of you who don't know, when the summer sales kind of came out, or when the sales began, it was kind of like this own little like game that they were playing. They had either sales hidden in specific titles. They had like competitions. There were little things you could do, and of course they had their every 12 hours they had a special flash sale. And I thought that was a lot better. It got you a little bit more motivated. And also, I think it made sense to have those deep discounts when they're only like on for 12 hours rather than a deep discount for 7 or 8 days at a time. I think it helped to make those games stand out more as well. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think going back to the good old days of when they had a sale every year, it was an event, and you looked
Mm-hmm.
forward to it. And you're like, oh, I can't. I hope this game goes on sale, and I've set aside $50 to go buy games on sale. And now it's just you wait 3 weeks and you got a sale, and
Mm-hmm.
it is yeah. And I that the complaints thing is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Not of the old sales, whippersnapper.
Yeah.
Um, no, it is. It's weird. I know Steam really, when it comes down to it,
Mm-hmm.
they are a business and they have all of the information on what is going to make them more money, and so they're just going to keep doing it. And they don't care if your game is $20 and you have to sell it for 5 just to get a sale. They get the same. They get money no matter how much your game
Mm-hmm.
sells for. And if people are more willing to spend more money during a sale, like I could either spend $20 on this one game, or I can spend $50 on 100 games. They
Yep.
don't care. And so yeah, you more sales,
Mm-hmm.
all sales all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I thought the game, I thought the games they did also drove engagement as well,
Yeah.
with you trying to like collect certain things. I mean, I again for all those old folks, we remember when they announced the whole Steam trading card system and how
Yeah.
the world stopped for about 10 minutes there.
Yeah, that's what got me into it is
Hmm.
the Steam sales and leveling, your Steam levels. Like
Oh God. Hmm.
yeah, the like buy more games during the sale and get your level jacked up. And that's I still have a couple of things, I think, some couple collectibles from the old sales, but like
Hmm.
yeah, it was fun. There was a lot going on. It brought you back every day. It brought you back to like study it
Hmm.
maybe even every hour, just to see what's new on sale. And now it's like I go on whenever, and I realize that at least something's going to be on sale, and I don't have to get
Hmm.
there at any particular time. It's just going to be there for me.
I think it also just makes it harder to pick out what games, what interesting titles, because everything is just thrown at you at once. Which,
Mhm.
incidentally, I think that's a good. That if we plan this better, that would be a segue into our next topic. But we still will probably have like 30, 40 minutes before we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it for me as well. Like, I see all these games on there, and I'm not really caring about them. Like we were just talking about this before we started, and a lot of the games, I'm just like one money is tight, so it's not like I can spend $100, $200, but like the games that I want to buy, I don't feel they're deep enough for me to really invest in, and the ones that I do see, I just don't have any interest in.
Yeah. Yeah, nowadays every once in a while I'll just go on my wish list and it tells me which one of those is on sale, and I'll pick it if I want it.
Yeah. Like some of the games that are on my wish list right now, Sonic Mania, but it's down. It's only like at $15. I was kind of hoping it would go down to like 8 or 9. Uh, the first two Sonic Adventure games are like $1 and like $2 or $3. So I may just bite the bullet on them. I picked up Tumblesea, but I already returned it just because it wasn't really doing it for me. I picked up this game. I think Elgoro mentioned it's an adventure game that's all like Renaissance paintings and figures that kind of make up like the entire art style.
Hmm.
Four Last Things, I think that's what it's called. And I'm sure there's like dozens upon dozens of other games,
Oh
but
yeah.
again, it's like I'm just not sure like if I'm ever gonna have the time, and I can use my money, and it's like again, like goes back to that thing. Like I think that's the weird thing you mentioned earlier about do I spend $50 on one game or $100 on like 10 to 15. For me, it's becoming the opposite. Do I spend $4 or $5 here and there on a game I may like, or do I just spend $15 to $20 on that one game that I've been waiting for to go on sale for the last 6, 7 months?
Yeah, and you actually just got me to look at my own wish list, and I wish I hadn't. I really wish I hadn't, because it's like, oh, Costume Quest is on sale for $1.50. Oh, look at this, Might and Magic Clash of Heroes is $2.50. Avencast Rise of the Mage. I don't even remember putting that on my wish list. It's 99 cents. It's 90% off. Like, how do I do this? And that is part of it. Like, back in the day, as it were, you'd go on and you'd have to like really watch and wait for your game to go on sale. But now it's just you go in and you can just blow a couple $100 without even blinking,
Oh
and
yeah.
suddenly you've got 1,000 games in your library.
And I've done that before in the past too.
Yeah.
Spend like $80, $90 to get like 20, 30 games I've never even played yet.
hmm
I would say definitely, Nizam, there that physical copies are being bought less, because again, that convenience has been such a big factor for digital stores and for growing the game industry as well. I mean, we've said this before, but what's better, going to a game store at midnight, waiting in line for a game, or hitting a key on my computer, having that game preloaded and ready to launch at 12:01? I mean, it's done a lot. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I've gone to like a store for a sale. I remember doing that in the 90s, folks, for you youngins out there again. Going to Babbage's on Christmas week to pick up a copy of StarCraft. That was fun, folks. That was a very fun time. Although I did find like $100 somebody like left on the ground. I was like, sweet. Well, that paid for StarCraft.
Well, there you go. You can't do that digitally. You can't just walk
People
around
don't
the
leave
internet.
money around
People
like
don't.
that.
No, not on the internet.
Mhm. If they did, it would be really nice for me, but nah. Yeah, and like collector editions, like those are still, that's its own topic in of itself. But yeah, like collector's
hmm
editions are still, I still think they hold value there. Like the really
Yeah.
good ones, like Blizzard. I think like Ubisoft puts out a few decent ones, but they're becoming harder to find. Rare old games, I think that's that's a tricky one, especially with GOG still doing the good fight there. But yeah, like with digital games again, they've kind of killed in some aspect the collectible market. Because the second a game like Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri or Paper Mario or Donkey Kong Country 1 get put on a virtual console, that kind of kills, people trying to get $300, $400 for them on eBay.
Yeah, and there's also the consoles themselves are
hmm
definitely like the Switch and many games, and may or may not be ones that I've worked on. They'll have a cartridge version, but
hmm
you can't really play it until you've downloaded tons of content. Or you just buy the digital version and you're downloading the whole thing anyway. So you either go out and buy the physical copy and still can't play it until you downloaded stuff, or you just download it and save yourself the legwork.
hmm
So yeah, the consoles themselves are kind of like, well, whatever, who needs Target or Walmart?
hmm And again, I'm looking at some of the games that are popping up on the sales, and I just don't feel motivated for them. Like, for instance, Wolfenstein 2 is right now on sale for $23 or $24, which is a really good sale, but it still doesn't feel, big enough for me. Like, I think for myself, and I'm curious for you folks watching this, and you as well, Rob, what do you think about this? For me, it's no longer about the game or what its original price is, but how far it goes down. Like I guess like for myself, like if a game isn't at least down to $10 or $15, maybe even less than that, I don't even bat an eye anymore at when I see it on Steam. But if I see a game down to like $2 or $3 or $4 or $5, that's when I will usually buy a lot of my games now. Just because I have so many titles that spending 20 plus dollars on a game, unless it's something like XCOM or Mario, I'm just not. I don't feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's another big thing about sales is that just I mean, same thing plagues me, and I'm sure a lot of people. I don't know if certainly don't know if it's everybody, but um, yeah, you go on and you're like, well, $60. If I wait 6 months, it's going to be 40 at worst case, maybe even less in a year. And you have so many games in your library, it doesn't really matter much how long you wait, at least for me. Now,
Yeah.
the big games that are coming out, they're always going to have, people are going to want it to buy it day one.
Yeah.
Less so for indie games, unless you're part of a Kickstarter or something, or very aware of this game coming out.
Yeah.
So, the sale has definitely brought your I will pay $60 for this game down to I'll wait until it's 20. So it is it's devalued a game just without even talking about the value of a game. The sales, as frequent as they are, have devalued your game. So you want to sell a game for $15, well, you're probably going to be selling it for $5, because that's what people are going to pay. They're going to wait and pay $5.
Yeah, and again, one of the people I follow, we had on the live cast, Bill Gardner, who did the game Perception. He's definitely a big he's definitely a big critic of the game devaluation there. And again, I think that's it. I don't want to spend money. Let me see. Yeah, for me, it's not about the percent discount anymore. It's about just what the actual price is. It's rare for me these days to spend $30, $40 on a single game. I mean, the last one I think I did that on was Doom 2016. Oh, wait, I think Prey, is when I bought it at sale for $30 or $20 or something like that. But again, that's a AAA game. That's one I'm not expecting to spend $5 to $10 on. But
I did that for. Sorry, you go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say mine was Planet Coaster and sadly Roller Coaster Tycoon World. Those are the last two full price games I bought.
Yeah, but for me, as I said, it's no longer about the game. It's about how deep that discount is. If I don't see it under $10, I pretend it just doesn't exist. Sonic Mania right now is on that bubble, being at $15 or $14. If it was a few more dollars, I would buy that. And again, that's kind of troubling for someone like me. I know it's a good game. I've heard people say it's a really great Sonic game, but it's a difference of $5. It reminds me whenever I watch Pawn Stars, one of those shows. They go, "Are you really gonna let this go for $25 or $50?" I'm like, they're like, "Yeah," because the value. It's getting to that point where there's just not enough value in there for me. And to give you another example, the one game that I would like to buy right now is God of War, the latest one, just to see what everybody's talking about. But the problem is, it's not on sale. The last time it was on sale, it was down to $45, and even that was no, I don't want to spend $45 on a single game. I can't spend anymore because I have too many other games to play.
And that's where GameFly comes in, right?
And going back to Nizam's question, do any developers benefit from a discount sale? I think, again, it's one of those very tricky things. For instance, we know, and we've said this before, for developers who go on the Humble Bundle, you are not making anywhere a decent amount of money if your game's on Humble for a penny or $1, stuff like that. And it's, as you were saying earlier, Rob, it really comes back down to quantity versus quality. Is it better to sell 50 copies at $40, or is it better to spend 100 or get 100 copies at $20? And again, it's very hard because, as we've said, you can lower your game as many times as you want, but you can never raise that price up once it's been released. Now, of course, early access throws its own monkey or own wrench in the process. But, again, once you start going down, people begin to expect that. So that's why you have to be really careful when you have those 70 to 80% deep discounts.
Yeah, and developers do get a benefit, but like you say, it's tough. You really have to ride a line because you technically you can raise the price, but you really shouldn't. But you do a deep discount. I say it benefits you if your sales have stagnated or if you were never able to get off the ground, you've got to
Hmm.
find that price point that people want to actually use and will spend money on your game for. Because if you have a game out and it's selling for X amount and it's not selling any copies, well, so what if you have to reduce the cost, the price point, even if it's a sale to generate interest,
Hmm.
like a deep sale for like limited time only, where 50 cents or something like that, just to generate interest, you got to do it. So for all developers, no, but for a lot of developers who just are underselling anyway, then yeah, there's a lot of upside. But
Hmm.
as we've been discussing, like there's a lot of downside for a lot of people
Yeah,
as a
and
developer.
and I think one of the things that we haven't brought up yet, that I think is very important for this discussion, is just what exactly is your consumer base and how big it is. Because you may like to think that everybody's going to enjoy your game, but that's never the case. Going back to, we mentioned Undertale earlier in the stream. There are a lot of people who have bought Undertale, and I think at this point, between it being on PC, Switch, PS4, and you name it, I think it's probably, or it has already hit peak saturation. The same goes for something like Nuclear Throne, or even something like The Binding of Isaac. There's only so many people out there who are going to buy your game. There's no such thing as a game that's going to sell copies forever, for eternity. Even big stuff like Call of Duty, Mario, and you name it, there's a fixed number, there's a finite number of people who are going to buy that game. Sure, you're going to have like those small peaks when there's a little sale. But if you're expecting a game to just keep selling and selling and selling forever, it's not going to happen. And that's why you have to be really careful with the timing of those sales. If you do it at the point where you are still having people come in, you can run that situation where anyone who's going to buy your game is going to buy at 80% off, and then nobody's left to buy it the other way. And if you do it too late, then the interest is gone. Like, everyone has already bought it, so why should I buy your game? Like, that big sale is not going to work for me.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I agree with all of that, and I want to go after what El Gordo's
Yeah.
saying here. Um, let's see. I have to scroll up a little bit. Digital games also avoid the manufacturing of the physical copies. I have a big bone to pick with publishers on this particular point because
Mm-hmm.
yes, it absolutely does, and yet the price doesn't go down because of it. Whole other topic, but that is my like pet peeve right there, both in the literature world and video games and movies. Putting your game on sale to get those people who are not your target audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's actually a benefit
Yeah.
for games who haven't figured it out yet or don't have a lot of sales.
Mm-hmm.
You may not know your target audience
Yep.
yet, and that's a good way to find out.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is the one of the few major positives for game sales. It gives developers a chance to get their weird or very niche title in front of people who probably would have never have bought to begin with. I know in one of my critical thought videos I said just that. And you mentioned this earlier, Rob, that for game sales, the purpose is for the consumer a lot of times. It's not for the developer. And for many consumers, they are more willing to buy an experimental or weird game, of course, the lower it is. Again, we've said this before with weighing the risk of buying something or the price barrier. If someone's not going to buy your game at $10, they may buy it at $1 or $2, or again, if you talk about mobile, they'll just play it for free. But the point is, it gives people a chance to become a fan, and that's why, as a game goes longer and longer, you start to see these bigger sales. Because, again, after 3-4 years, everybody who knew about your game has probably already bought it by then. And then your sales are going to be for getting those people who never have heard of your game, or they may have heard it because they saw a YouTuber or somebody talk about it, but the price was too high, and now they want to try it out. Again, games like visual novel style games or weird puzzle games or all those very experimental narrative driven games, most people aren't going to spend $20-$30 on them, but they may
Hmm.
buy them for $4 or $5. And again, at that point, your fan base has probably already invested in those titles.
Yeah, and to the point of Nizam, that's why it's important to research heavily. It is very important, but there's only so much you can do.
Yep.
Like you really could. You do all the research. You can get all these play testers, and maybe even 100 or more if you're lucky enough as an indie dev to have access to that many people. Um, and you might have a lock on it, and then you release it, and it's not what you thought. And that's why expanding that reach a little bit to find that niche that your people did not represent that like the game better. That's good. It's always a good thing there. But again, for the bigger developers who already have that lock,
Mm-hmm.
it does. It devalues that game at this, but at the same time, it allows them to get those extra sales that they weren't able to get originally.
Yep. And I think the other point is that there are some games you really can't do all that big research on. Like we said, there are a lot of experimental and weird games that are out on Steam these days, or not just on Steam, but just in the general market. Like, for instance, who could have figured that Binding of Isaac would have taken off so well? I mean, you show that game, like, imagine Edmund McMillan, like, walking into Walmart and showing that game off to executives going, this is going to be the next big thing. It features, we have a mother trying to kill her son, there's poop all over the place. This will be a game of the year. They probably would have, like, thrown him out the door right there. And then, of course, on the flip side, you have stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's, Rocket League, again, Undertale. Sometimes you just never know what game is going to be that massive hit.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very hard. I mean, I've spoken to many developers who felt like their game was going to be that hit, whether it was due to being targeting a very specific niche or being something that no one's ever seen before, and the game just kind of went like that. Just went up and then down. And sometimes great games just disappear. Again, our new favorite example that we mentioned on Discord now is Asura. I loved Asura. We've had the developer on several times to talk about it. But that game has had like very little traction.
Yeah, it's a tough world for a dev out there. It really is for an indie dev especially. I'm glad I am sad and glad that I'm out of that business these days.
Yeah.
Underrated. That's that key word. So many games out there are in that group, and then there's so many that are in the opposite group of that's not a very good game, but yet it sold a ton of copies.
As Rob says with Undertale, is everyone watching go attack Rob for that. But yeah, like as we were saying, and with so many games being released, and this has been one of the major problems when it comes to game evaluation. Like, for instance, I just pulled up random games on Steam right now. So we have games like Fear, Condemned, let's see, even stuff like Middle-earth: Shadow of War that are on discount at $13, $20. And then right next to them are, these very weird or very unknown indie games. There's a game called Shape of the World, some weird game called Abo Kashim, which I've never heard of. Even stuff like Dominions 3 is popping up. And even the game El Gordo keeps telling me to play, that Blood game, that's on sale down to $1.24 right now. But the point is, all these games are coalescing into each other. And it's becoming very hard, once again, to kind of figure out, where is the value? Why should I buy your indie game that's for $4 when I see this AA or AAA game on sale for $10? And conversely, why should I spend money on your AAA game when I can buy all these indie games for $1, $3, or mobile for free? Mm-hmm. And there's a greater topic here regarding the kind of the issue of racing to the bottom, or I'm sorry, there's a greater issue in terms of actually putting a price on your game. That would probably be another 30 to 40 minute discussion if we get into right now. But as you said, Rob, it is a very big decision about how much do you price your game. Is $30 fair? Is it not fair? And as we said, when it comes to the independent market, there's definitely a stigma among consumers about high-priced indie games. If they see you pricing your game at like $30, $40, and it's not from a studio like Atlas or Nintendo or Sega, They're thinking that you're trying to rip people off. It doesn't matter if you spent 6 months on your game or 6 years. They see it as they think, there's no independent game that's worth $40. What are you trying to pull?
Yeah, I've had many fights about
Mm-hmm.
the pricing of a game
Mm-hmm.
throughout its lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, memories.
Fun memories.
Yeah.
But I guess to begin to wrap up this section before we move on to our next topic, then. Yep. And that was, I think, another game that I was looking at. Gorgoa. Let me see. Yep, exactly. That's one I was looking at. It's on sale for 15 and it's down to 9. And again, like for me, it still feels like it's a little too high for me. Like I was waiting for it to be like $5 or $6. Like again, like for me, it's no longer about the game or the original or the discount. It's about what it's at right now. And like for myself, like $5 to $6 is kind of like my I'll try it out thing. And any more than that, it gets harder and harder. Yeah, and yeah, as Dragon's saying, it took 7 years to make, but the consumer doesn't care about that. They don't
Mhm.
see 7 to 10 years of development. They see a game price at $15 or $30 or anything like that, and they don't care. And I guess here's a question, and this could be its own philosophical argument. Thanks for coming on, for, and yeah, you'll
Good luck. Good luck to you, Foreign.
yeah, exactly. You can watch this on archive once you're done submitting. But here's a big question: should the audience care? Like, do you think the audience should be caring about this, or it? Again, like I can see it both ways. It's always great for the consumer to know more about the process, but at the end of the day, is it their responsibility, or is it within their purview to care about how long or how much work that went into a video game?
I mean, really, that's the kind of question that's like, well, no. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
their money. They should be caring about their money and
Yeah.
how it's spent, which really is it. But if you're, I mean, if you're a diehard fan, then you're going to care. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have all this knowledge. But that audience you can't go after that audience because they're not they're either going to buy your game or they're not, just out of hand. You can't convince them one way or the other. The diehards,
Mm-hmm.
and there aren't that many of them, unfortunately.
Yep. And I mean, that's one of the weird. I think that's a really good point there about die-hard fans. I mean, there are developers who made their living off of those die-hard fans, like Spireweb Software with their old school RPGs, Paradox Interactive with Stellaris, Crusader Kings, the war game genre. Hell, we could even say RTSs these days as well, or very narrative-driven games. Like, they have their hardcore fans. As we said, there will always be people who will buy your game day one. The problem is whether that's in the teens or the thousands, you just don't know. And unfortunately, you have to be really careful. Like, for instance, another good example, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, that we talked about a few weeks ago. That game has people who love it. There's just not a lot of people who love it that much. And again, you have to really really weigh those points there. Let me see. There is a game that while I was talking, I'm trying to look it up as well, and I'm sure if I mention it right now, everyone will say it. But there was that narrative game about you. Oh wait, I think I may have found. Oh, I did. Well, I just realized that's another point. There's so many games coming out, you tend to forget what's named what. But something like where What Remains of Edith Finch, for instance. That game is overwhelmingly positive on Steam right now, and it's on sale for $10. But I just don't know that is a price that I want to pay for a narrative-driven game.
Yeah, narrative-driven games. They are what I grew up on, and I love them to death. But the way I look at it now is, and I buy them all the time. I look at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I start this game, I'm going to have to dedicate some time to it to finish it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I'm going to forget what's going on.
Yep.
So yeah, that's why the price does help there for me. That's why I get into ARPGs, because the narrative does not matter at all.
Yep.
You're there to kill things and level up.
And collect lots of collectibles and jump off of towers if you're playing a Ubisoft game. But yeah, and that goes back to the point. I'm sure the developers on What Remains of Edith Finch or Gorgoa, as you said, or as Draken said, they put in a lot of work into those games. Like, those aren't titles you make because you're trying to cash in or make a quick buck on them. But as a consumer, again, everybody is competing for your time. Like a good example, as I said earlier before we started the section, I just got Netflix as part of my cable bundle due to some weird finagling. That's who knows how many more hours of stuff that I'm never going to get around to. And again, I know that may seem like a joke, but it's quite a serious point. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you can't spend 24 hours playing video games or watching TV. There's other things you have to do. So, with all these games being released and all this stuff trying to take up our time, there's only so much you can fit in. And bring this back to video games, it's the same thing with my money. If I only have, $10 to $15 of disposable income right now, that means I only have $10 to $15 to spend on games. So whether I buy one game or 4 or 5 games, that's it. It doesn't matter if your game is an award-winning game of the year or you spent 15 years of your life making it. If it's not within that $15 price range, it doesn't exist for me, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's all about the consumer and what they can do, and whether or not, as a developer, you don't have to care about that. You don't. But if you're savvy, if you're business savvy, you'll know how and when to go after that particular $15 person. I've sadly never had that savvy. Say that 10 times fast. I never have, and I probably never will, but there are people out there who know that very well, play that numbers game. And yeah, that is correct. They only buy within their budgets for the most part. Obviously, there are people who take that $15 and they're like, well, I don't need to eat this week. But yeah, you have to be mindful of people's budgets and your audience's budget in particular. And then you can use that to your advantage. Sometimes you're like, well, I can't afford to go after the person with only $15. In 9 months, I can. In a year, I can. But like, sometimes you just have to say, no, I'm not going to go after that person right now. It's just too early in the game for me, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it's all about. It's a game within a game about games.
Yep, and I was talking, this goes back to the podcast I did with Susanna for Games for Change, and we talked about all the various skills that go into game development. And as you just said, Rob, that kind of understanding the market and being able to read it, that's an essential skill that I don't think a lot of developers have. And as we said, there's a lot, and this is its own topic, so we won't go into it here, but there are a lot of skills beyond just designing and programming a game, and art as well, or the aesthetics, that lead to a successful title. And you really do need to know it all if you want to have a chance these days.
Yeah.
Now, I guess one final question, or one final thing for this section, then we'll take a quick little weird game break, and then we'll get to our final topic then for this week. And I think I just lost it too, which is really great. Let me see if I can remember it very quickly. I guess, Rob, try to keep everyone distracted while I think for a second here.
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm looking at my own list, which is way too long. My wish list. And it's funny how you keep saying the next big thing, because there's a game called The Next Big Thing. It's an adventure game I've been wanting to buy. It's on sale for $2. Boy, The Path. I'm not that interested. $7.50. It's not enough for me. How old is that game that it's still $10?
A while, and it's like at least 8 or 9 years, maybe a
It's
little less than
it's nine years old, 2009. So almost going on 10. Ooh, American Nightmare. I kind of want. I haven't bought that. How have I not gotten that game?
that. Let me see. We were just talking about skills. I think it was just a little bit before then with the price. Hmm.
So, what games you guys in chat? What games have you been able to get this sale, or are you saving up for a new title to come out? I will say that consoles a little bit. I'm mostly PC gamer, as you may or may not be able to tell. So, no games coming out or that you bought.
All right. I can't remember my question. Maybe if I start to throw in a final one, maybe it will just like pop into my head.
That's
But
exactly how it will happen.
yeah. But I guess to wrap up this section, maybe we'll show up in the next section. Maybe I'll just magically get in there. But when it comes to the idea of these sales, again, it's something that is not going to go away anytime soon. And you have to, I think, be mindful of them as both a consumer and a developer. And do you think we will ever see a point, or I guess this will be, I guess, the backup question. Do you think game sales are going to go away? Do you think that we will get to that point where, oh, I just remembered, and I said that, it just popped in. There we go. This is the last question then. This goes back to what we were saying earlier with developers like Dusk and Nuclear Throne. But there are developers out there who will outright refuse their game sales. And I think we mentioned this earlier as part of a matter of principle. Do you think that is a right mindset? To never have your game go on sale, no matter if it's out for 6 months or 10 years? And I think I would agree with that, Dragon. I don't think that is a good mindset to have. And I think this goes again back to our original point that at the end of the day, the sales aren't for the developers. They're a chance for the fans or for consumers to be exposed to more games. So, I guess, what do you think about that, Rob?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's that never say never kind of thing. If you just dig your heels in, you're like, well, my game's $20, and that's all there is to it. If you don't have $20, you're not getting my game. It is. It's the sales are for the consumers, and it's a celebration of games. It's a celebration of the fans. And you know what? You've probably given away your game to reviewers, so what's the harm in letting fans pick up your game for a little cheaper? I do understand some of the thought process, like. Why would I want the person who bought my game first for $20 to who really spent a lot of time to have it cheapened by another person coming in later and buying it for $3 and having the same experience? Well, from my money there, it's not the same experience. The first person, they wanted to dedicate a lot of time to it. They have the enjoyment of being first and really diving in and being a fan. And the other person, they get the enjoyment of trying out a new game that they wouldn't have otherwise had to enjoy. And both of those types of consumers are absolutely legitimate. And why would you want to not take that $3 away from that other person who just wants to give your game a chance?
Yeah. And I think going back to what you were saying again regarding the marketing side, this is also where thinking about things as a business comes into play. Because you can use that interest that you raise from one game to help generate it for your next game or for whatever game you're currently working on. Because as we said, when we get to the point of talking about using sales to drive people, it's to drive people who've never even heard of your games or those who never played it. And it may be worth it to, let's say, sell your first game for $3 to $4 to get that person who will now love your game and will be more willing to spend $10 to $20 on your next game because they found it beforehand. But with that said, though, while that may be, the eye in the sky dream, you cannot bank on that always happening. Like I said, when it comes to game design, while there's a lot you can do to mitigate risks, sometimes things just happen. Sometimes Five Nights at Freddy's blows up to become a global phenomenon, and sometimes Asura just disappears under the ether.
Yeah.
And you can't really do anything sometimes to do all that.